I wonder whether Damsel would have caused such an uproar if the protagonist was not a princess, but rather a prince. Would the reaction have been the same? After all, it is more common to examine the human condition through a male protagonist. Or perhaps if it was written in the 80s, like the movie Dragon Slayers, perhaps people would have seen it as a trite and trifling narrative of a girl who simply didn't want to be killed by a dragon that she was sacrificed to. Hello listeners, DGM messing with you. Welcome to my channel. This is my first video, so if you could be so obliged to like, subscribe, and don't get me started. We all remember Shrek Forever After. When in pursuit of his early life as an ogre, Shrek's deal with Rumpelstiltskin transports him to an alternate reality where he and Fiona never meet. A reality where he never saves the princess, and thus the princess is forced to save herself. We are shown how one man or ogre's decision to not step into his necessary role has adverse effects on a woman's worldview and attitude towards life. In the face of danger, she no longer waits for a savior because that's not guaranteed. Instead, she has to play the hero in her own life, as sad as it is. And I think this premise is what we should take note of, especially in Netflix's Damsel. Damsel is about a young woman named Elodie. The whole time I thought she was a princess, but no, she's just the daughter of a lord. Anyway, her village is poor and will likely not last the freeze of winter, so her father arranged for her to marry the prince of Oria, a faraway kingdom she'd never heard of. After traveling with her family to greet her soon-to-be in-laws and staying over for a night, Elodie and Prince Henry have their wedding the next morning. Bada bing, bada boom. But soon after her parents leave, she isn't taken to the honeymoon destination. No, she's told that there is one last ceremony to take place at the top of a mountain, not realizing that it is just a ritual to sacrifice her to the dragon that lives in the caves. The majority of the film is spent following Elodie around as she fights for her life and learns from the tragic failures of young women who were sacrificed before her to survive. First thing I want to address is that people keep labeling Elodie to be this girl boss Mary Sue that would rather starve than be married and retaliates unfairly on her enemies, but that's simply not the case. Our first introduction to Elodie delineates her selfless, responsible character when she chides her sister for not giving up her bedroom drapes to serve the people, or when, after finding out that strangers had come to the village, she says,
"They may take whatever wood they can carry."
She isn't wasteful or concerned with material goods when it comes to the well-being of her people. Honestly, it's incredibly difficult to miss unless you're just not watching the film.
Who is that? Stepmother?
Oh my goodness. This man, he has a fleet of ships.
That's no reason to marry.
Mature statement, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, why are we acting like she wouldn't have some air of trepidation, especially since she's just been greeted by this Scarlet Bene Gesserit looking woman? In the very least, we know she's not a gold digger. Saying that carriages full of gold is no reason to marry is a realistic statement, and one that is the most romantic. She's, in her own way, saying, I would rather marry for love. In my opinion, she handles this very well, hardly going through the motions and hardly throwing a tantrum. I mean, I believe in love at first sight, but married at first sight, well, we've seen how that goes. And look at that. My, can we just appreciate the sheer eye candy that this movie is? I haven't heard anyone mention yet the cinematography and landscapes and the color themes. The way that this movie just pops in your face, it's like a dream. In fact, I know I've dreamt of a feel like this, but I've never actually seen it rendered on the screen. And that just made me so delightful while watching this film. Everything looks amazing. The costumes look amazing. The wigs look amazing. Angela Bassett is glowing. She looks phenomenal. And the greens and the golds in the background are providing a perfect slate for the red to just pop. The reds in the flags, the reds in the hair, the reds in the roses. It's all so rich, and I just love this color scheme the most out of the rest of the film.
There's something wrong.
I just hope he's kind.
Okay, so before any character growth has happened, we already know that Elodie at her core is pragmatic, agreeable, respects tradition, honors her family, and she's selfless and determined. So that's a good start. And the reason I'm exploring this part of the movie is because this is something that people have just skipped over in their minds. And I think it's mainly because when the media is ringing in your ear, you expect the worst that's not actually there. This is why we need to have listening ears, and it's something that has been lost among modern audiences, which is my next point. What is the purpose of Damsel? Well, from the director himself, Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, he tells Tadam, at the core, this is such a beautiful story about a young woman becoming a strong, independent, empowered adult. Elodie doesn't have any kind of support. It's a real survival experience. Adult. That's what this is about. Just because the protagonist is a female doesn't mean that this only markets towards females. This story is a story for everyone involved, and we could all learn something from her journey.
Hi, I'm Millie Bobby Brown. I want to tell you why I made my new movie, Damsel. I made it to not only challenge myself, but to have young girls and boys look up to someone that started as a victim, turned themselves into a warrior, to use all of the things that were meant to restrict her into using them as her weapon to protect herself and to become this warrior that she didn't know was inside of her. There was a lot of metaphors and a lot of meaning that I think could help a younger audience kind of navigate their life. There's a piece of Elodie in everyone, and you can channel that whenever you want to.
It seems as though modern audiences today cannot handle a simple plot with a simple moral. Now, obviously, this is not our fault, since just about everything Hollywood has thrown at us cannot spare to make at least one scene in each movie that is in favor of wokeism. But what this has done is condition us to then expect it. Watching a movie or show these days often feels like going off to war against the constant bombardment of social politics and virtue signaling. That being said, by and by there will be one movie or show with a neutral morality and themes that wouldn't have thickened a divide between certain social groups or political groups in, say, the 80s.